Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla. Welcoming back to a very belated episode of Car Rides with Schla. It's almost a little bit strange to even be doing the show. Now, what had happened is somebody at my work was having problems with their car, so for the past 2 days they were coming with me, which obviously means no car rides with Schla. And yeah, I mean that kind of sums it up. So there are 4 missing car rides with Schlas that otherwise would have been. Just checking if I remembered everything. Yes, I did. So yeah, but besides that, I guess to recap, I have been feeling all right. I'm kind of back to being able to get out of bed better. This morning was a little rough because I stayed up kind of late because I was really thinking about getting this thing on eBay, but I decided not to and just went to bed. So I didn't really end up staying up that late, and I was kind of disappointed because I'd wanted that thing, but I didn't need it. You know what I mean? And I just think with everything I've done recently, like it was a difficult decision, but I really have to focus on what's actually important, not just like extra stuff. Because I love to buy extra stuff. I love to buy duplicates and extra things, but I really got to be careful, you know? So that's kind of my conclusion from that, is it's like, yeah, I have to figure that out. I have to be careful, you know? So, but I have been waking up and sleeping pretty well, like I have to say. I don't know. I honestly think it's more of like a depression thing as to why, like, I can't, why I wasn't able to get out of bed in the morning. And I guess right now I feel less in that. Yeah, this is just great, this guy. Oh, no, never mind. That's fine. Go ahead. Anyways. Yeah, I haven't done this in a while. It's almost kind of strange. You would think for me it really wouldn't be that strange and I'd just like jump back into the swing of things, but I don't know. Isn't that weird? But I haven't been sleeping as much as I wanted to. I know I had said a while ago that, you know, I had really wanted to I had really wanted to start to sleep longer. I thought that would be like a good thing to experiment with. And I was trying for a while but wasn't. And then now it's not that I'm trying and I'm not. It's that, like, I'm still kind of getting the same amount of sleep as before, which isn't bad. But I'm just hypothesizing that I could feel a little bit better with a little bit extra sleep. I may be incorrect. I mean, maybe I am getting a sufficient amount of sleep for just who I am. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. but it was something I had wanted to work on, and what's happened now is I just think the motivation to wake up has returned. If that makes any sense, it's like, the motivation to wake up is back. Like I don't just feel like it's difficult to get out of bed. Like I said, this morning was a little bit different due to a conjunction of things. I was having dreams, which, usually alters things. Having dreams for me, it usually makes things a little bit different in my experience. Yeah, I don't know, but it's like in terms of things to talk about, I don't know how I've been feeling recently. I guess my main thing is, a lot of times people have this like advice, they call it advice, where you're like, the advice, it's not even, I don't even know if calling it advice is really the most accurate description of it. But, basically it's this alleged advice that sometimes in life you just have to. There's a lot of these like advices that are out there. These advice kind of sayings or attitudes like, "Oh, life is hard. You have to be stronger and kind of like deal with it kind of advice, like, oh, grow up." And in my experience, that is how most people tend to come to conclusions about things, is that type of an attitude. It's that type of an attitude. It's just like, oh, well, what can you do? And I think like anybody else, like, you do believe that. You do. But to a point, I don't think those kind of attitudes actually promote or encourage like a good system. They, over time, actually create a population that is compliant with conditions, even if they're not really good. There's a lot of people who just aimlessly think that things couldn't be better because of this like abstract concept of, well, that's just the way things are. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about, because I think the problem is people are pretty, I think it's a perceptive issue. I think people in general, and the reason why they get mad at me for bringing up like accurate statistics, for example, is because most people are not really concerned with accurate statistics or accurate data about other people's lives. People are, and I guess it actually makes sense from a survival standpoint, but people are aggressively biased to essentially their own statistics. So the way they live and they encounter things is how they see data. And if data is in contrary to what they've experienced, their like initial thing is to, that might not be true. Because the thing is, it's not true to them as an individual. That's the whole thing, is it's like, to them as a person, they've seen the world differently. So that's kind of the whole thing, is they've witnessed things differently, and for them that isn't true. And so that's why people like to muscle through a lot of arguments with me, usually concerning data, because data's not relevant to a regular person. That's what I'm realizing now. I mean, they just don't, it does not matter to them what somebody else is going through, or even what most people go through. What matters is what they're going through and what has been true in their life. And really, in a way, that is the case. I mean, a lot of times people even have problems gauging the experiences that they see. There's a lot of people that, when I bring up a statistic, they immediately like want to say, oh, well, I know tons of people like that, and trying to like disprove my thing. And even that can be misleading, because it's like, I don't know, we know, well, everybody should know that there is like a perceptive flaw in that. Just because you happen to know a lot of people that defy the data does not mean that there's any evidence that the data is wrong. And that's like how a lot of people, it's how a lot of people get about things. And it's just frustrating, but I realize that's why, because there's a lot of things like that. I mean, a lot of times, I guess I try to be more class conscious than most people would in my situation, and it's not helpful to me in my life. Like, it doesn't benefit you at all to be aware of, like, the downtrodden. For like, it just doesn't help. You don't get any brownie points for that. Being grateful, it doesn't help in survival at all. If you were in the wild, being grateful is like weak. Like you have to stay hungry, you have to keep pushing. And there's so many people who have that push mentality, and even though we're in a civilized, like, we're not in the wild anymore. We need more minds and more humans in this incarnation to think about things civilly, not like we're still in the wilderness. But a lot of people do the wilderness thing, and the system is set up to incentivize that greed and that behavior. So that's kind of the problem, is like, so many conversations I would have with, random people over the years, I would kind of be the first time, like, people usually really just think about careers and money, and they're laser focused on that, because that's really what's rewarded. And yes, in some cases, some careers are genuine or they're good, but others point at systemic issues. Being an accountant, the amount of burden that puts on particularly lower class people, because of the fees and getting your taxes done that a lot of people pay, even though obviously at this point you don't really need to the same like extent. I mean, things are, I don't know, they're not like really as bad as they used to be, where you probably can just get away with using a free program. Most people might not need a tax person, but everybody I know still went in person to get their taxes done. So a lot of people do it. You know, a lot of people, it's still too complicated for them to go through the thing, and it's a systemic burden, because you shouldn't have a tax code that is that problematic and complicated, and it really shouldn't be that expensive. But, you know, and that's also just an example of overcapitalization, because, you know, you used to know somebody who could do your taxes, and then now everybody just relies more and more on money. That's kind of something I don't even know if I've brought up before, but it was like, in the past, it's like, oh, you need a new piece of furniture. Oh, well, oh, my brother has this couch he wanted to get rid of. You can have it, you know? But nowadays, like, that's not really promoted, and people are not as remotely as socially coherent anymore. So the result of that is, no, you're incentivized. They want you to buy a new couch. They want you to buy a new couch because it's better for the economy. And all the numbers have been juiced up to be more efficient, and that, you know, hand-me-down kind of buying pre-owned and stuff, like, that's not really incentivized that much anymore, you know? And so life used to be very different, but now it's like they really want people purchasing stuff new, stimulating the economy, working hard to keep that train going. So it's a entirely different mindset. And most of it falls on a lack of social cohesion. People not really being able to socialize properly, and instead just having to rely more and more on money, because that's like the way our society is now. It's almost like you can't, because I'm not even saying this as like, oh, this is an individual's problem for not socializing enough. It's also the other people they would be socializing with. It's people's intentions with things. It's what people value. It's what people care about. And it shows. And like, even if you were a superstar socialite, that may not always yield anything, and you still may be stuck spending a lot of money for things in general, even if you're in that position. So but there is pretty big problems with that, and I don't know why these things weren't as much of a problem before. I mean, it could have been because taxes were different, but because they've only gotten really bad recently. It could have been taxes were different. It could have been a larger percentage of people had more intact morals. But like I said, I think a lot of people were just less dependent. I mean, if you had a family member who was great at cooking, you probably wouldn't be ordering takeout as much. But now that a lot of us have lost that torch, hasn't been passed on how to cook well, it's a lost skill, and so now people lean more on the system. They lean more on takeout in restaurants, and a lot of times it's really not even high quality food. I mean, especially in the case of fast food, that people lean on so much. It's not healthy. It doesn't really even taste that good. They just, try to use salt and sugar to mask things about the flavor. But yeah, I think that's kind of a lot of these ideas people don't know. They don't think about until like I've talked to them about it or something. They're just telling me, "Oh, real estate's good. Real estate makes good money. Let me get into that." And then it's like, well, we shouldn't even have real estate agents. That shouldn't be a career. It shouldn't be an occupation. Because at this point with the internet, it doesn't matter. You could easily look up a bunch of home listings and just buy them yourself, and people could sell them themselves, and now you have this really wealthy career, this real estate agent who isn't really contributing to society in that much of a meaningful way. And it should at least be like a relatively low paid job, is probably what it should be, a relatively low paid job. But there's a lot of things like that where a lot of these careers only exist due to other humans' incompetence or laziness. Maybe we could have a system already that is more in line with, oh yeah, just list a house yourself. Just list it yourself. And then other people can just browse. But there's a segment of humans that they really don't want to lift a finger. Again, it's a mixture of laziness, it's a mixture of poor executive decision making, and so the market really capitalizes on that. It really capitalizes on it. It takes advantage of those people and those things. So I think a lot of that is a big deal as well, you know? It's that a lot of people have to be catered to. And most people, I guess it's true, they really don't have much of a higher aspiration for other people or humanity. A lot of people, they do like themselves, and that's really what they want out of life. you know? And they're not thinking about the bigger picture, and they don't really care about building wealth, and so they just, if they have to get their taxes done, they just pay for it. Just pay someone to do it. Quit. You know, they don't really want to have to deal with that. Sorry, the reason why I keep pausing is I'm just getting a little bit agitated because the traffic is moving relatively slow right now, so I'm just very tired, and I will have to get gas tomorrow, and I'm a little bit nervous that I won't remember, but I wish you could adjust the notification for when to get gas. Like, I wish you could adjust the percentage, because I feel like they tell you to get gas, like, when it's too low. That's, like, my opinion. They probably tell you to get gas when it's like at a 16th, and I think it should just be at like an 8th that the thing pops up as a reminder. I just would like the reminder to be sooner. Maybe in different cars it's different, and by the way, I just made that as a guess. I have no idea when it actually like shows up or not. I could be wrong. My 16th thing, that was just kind of some random guess. It wasn't really based on anything, so just putting that out there. But I don't know how much it matters, even though, again, I'm a little bit irritated about, I'm probably going to end up being like 5 minutes later to work than I would have been. It might not really end up mattering. Because the way that my hours are different this week, I think I'll be able to get out of work relatively early. So yeah. It shouldn't really matter. Basically, what I'm saying is, the reason why before I was so like pushy about getting there super early is because for a period of time we had like so many days off. So when there's a day off, it gets dicier. But in this case, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't actually know. I guess I don't exactly really know why the early thing, because now it doesn't really seem like Yeah, I'm not really too sure. But regardless, I'm not really too concerned with it. I mean, I always like to get there as early as possible, but again, I keep waking up a little bit later than I'd like. The previous 2 days, I actually woke up like great. Today was just half great, you know. So hopefully tonight I can do a little bit better, which I actually should be able to, because I should be able to leave at a little bit more reasonable of a time. Like the past couple times I've been staying kind of like excessively late, and that hasn't really been too great when I get home. Like it's not really too great. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mojo. I mean, I just don't. I don't know. It's weird because I think I'm also just tired. But like I said, I didn't really have too much to talk about other than the thing I kind of trailed off and never really finished, which was, again, people's like overall nihilism to things, and how, again, it's actually like incentivized. I don't even know if it's, well, it is kind of systemically incentivized for you to be nihilistic, but it's also more of just like a reality thing. I mean, if you think about out in nature, if something unfair happened, like, let's say you were just walking normally and a tree fell and you got hit and it got stuck under your leg. You know, as like a caveman, you may think that that's unfair, and I mean, that's pretty valid. Like you know, really, that shouldn't happen. It's extremely rare, and if that happened to you, then you as a caveman would be like, you know, upset and thinking it's not fair. But what I'm saying is, like, for survival, even though you're right, you're actually like incentivized to just push through it and not even care, you know? And that's kind of this romanticized, I call it a romanticized trait, because at this point it's not even a good trait. Like, you actually, I mean, more people should like not tolerate stuff. They should complain about stuff more. I've talked about it before. Like, it's the 21st century. We should effectively have risk taken out of society, to where, again, everybody's accountable. You know, the people who drive recklessly get punished for that. But risk should be taken out of society. We should have pretty flush insurance funds where you know that it's not going to ruin your life, and that everybody's trying their best, you know, to drive safely and to try to live healthily, is to not take from the flush insurance thing. And I mean, risk could effectively and should be just taken completely out of society at this point. You know, I said that before. It's the 21st century. Why do we not basically have insurance for everything, but for everyone, not just for the wealthy? It's completely possible to have a system like that, completely, with the technology that we have. And, you know, really it's a matter of people not caring about it, or not valuing that, not wanting to do it. There's not any other rhyme or reason to why things are like that, you know? There just isn't. But instead you get like this romanticized, like, no, even if terrible things, just keep going, just keep going. And no, I think there's a lot of times things happen to people and they're right to be upset and should actually put their foot down harder about it. You know? I mean, of course you persevere, but in my opinion, a part of that perseverance is actually to speak up, you know, and communicate properly about the problem. Not just like walk on a broken leg, but actually get it solved and figure out, okay, how do we... Because, of course, in the caveman times, you couldn't really do anything. But nowadays, you can. There's systems in place. Well, there's systems that... I mean, they should be in place. You know what I mean? There we have the ability to conceive of these things. It's the same way with poverty. It's the same way with food. Although, you know, the other argument is, do these things lower the standard for a lot of people? Like, because there's that caveat too. Like, if you make things better, is that creating an environment where... See, it gets really complicated, though, because that kind of flies in the face of everything I just said. Because if you create a better and better system, it's probably going to create softer and softer people. Probably. You know? I mean, to some extent, there is a pretty good argument to be made that it would widen the pool. So, like, if you had a lot of these things, there's a lot of good talent that could get noticed. But I think at the same time, like, another pretty big problem is that, you know, when you keep making things better and better and easier and more accommodating, especially emotionally, I think people do just kind of take advantage of that. And we're already at that point where, I mean, the main problem is that it's like unfair, because you have the largest chunk as a percentage that just have like terrible lives. Basically, they never really make enough money to amount to anything, and they don't have any generational wealth, and they barely have anything. And I don't know if that's a true majority of people in America, but it could be close to it. You know, especially like with the way the economy is now, it could be like 40% of people who are in pretty deep poverty, and their lives just never really end up amounting to much. You know, they have to work paycheck to paycheck. Most of their money goes to like paying for their car, rent, all these things that they get like strapped by and they can't. And then you have poor executive function where you can't. Then you're like, you can't cook. So you just keep picking the easy road, which is food. And you know, even that is predatory in a way, like, because if you didn't have all those fast food places or restaurants as options and you only had the grocery store, well, maybe people would have to be pushed to make food because they wouldn't starve. You know, they wouldn't starve. But I think that is kind of an understanding that I haven't realized before and does make a lot of sense. I mean, as we create a rougher and harder system, it does, there is kind of the addressing of like, again, well, what about people who aren't or shouldn't really be? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people like that where like they only exist because of the system, and yeah, there's just a lot of people who like aren't very independent, you know. And like that's not necessarily good, you know. And so that's why I think at some point you're going to have to, well, I don't know if you're going to have to, because they could have a lot of welfare and actually try to help people, but you're going to have some kind of a reckoning with this where, yeah, there's a lot of people who just wouldn't survive otherwise, you know. We just like played video games all the time and we didn't really do a lot of productive things in our childhood or teenage years, and like I really shouldn't be alive. I think it's almost why like you have people's depression, because there's a lot of people that they don't don't have a purpose. They, if we're talking about old terms, like their body shouldn't be alive based on what little they've done. And then so it's like when you get to be a teenager, there's like a rush of that, even if it's like a subconscious, just this rush of this self-awareness about it. And I just think it's very interesting, because that's probably it. No, there's like a lot of people where even if they don't understand all this stuff to the same degree, I think deep down they know. I think deep down they know. And so that's why things are how they are. I don't know. Sorry, I know I'm kind of trailing off. It's just trying to think. Alright. Yeah, and I have to get gas tomorrow. I have to remember about that. I wish, again, I could adjust when I would like it to tell me that information, but that is not possible. Well, actually, it might be possible, but What? Why does it say that? Oh my gosh. What? This thing is just being stupid. Sorry, I'm just getting annoyed. Took us a while to get here, too. Oh, right, because of the... Whatever. I'm very mad about that. Anyways, yeah, I guess I have to get going and like figure that out. But that's just like I don't understand what this thing is like doing. Alright, anyways, it's been Schla, and now it's time to buy Schla. So, see ya, Schla.